DirtTrax is sponsored by Can-Am, the ride says it all. Polaris, the ultimate in off-road vehicles. Hatfield McCoy Trails, where hundreds of miles of off-road adventure await you today. Yamaha ATVs and side-by-side vehicles, real world tough. And by Honda. Check out the growing family of Honda ATVs and side-by-sides.
Last week on DirtTrax, we were able to start our destination story, moving from Moab to Gateway Canyons Resort with Baja racer Chuck Dempsey. We saw amazing scenery moving through Moab to Gateway. We're able to crest and go across the La Salle Mountains. Once we had made it to Gateway Canyons Resort, we were pretty excited for what we were going to do next. So at Gateway Canyons Resort, they have the driven experiences, and one of those is the Pro Baja driven experience.
Driven Experiences is a great company, and it's actually a company that you do a lot of fun stuff in. One of the things that we have is you come out here to Gateway and we take you out to our training track and train you how to drive a trophy truck. So you can have half day, full day, or multi-day.
AJ told me, he said, "Dad, when we get to Gateway Canyon, Chuck has got this whole deal going down there where they have these full-on desert racing trophy trucks with 450 horsepower motors, and we're gonna drive them." And honestly, I thought about that and thought about it, and my overall feeling was, this will be really cool. Little did I know, this was the coolest off-road thing I had ever done.
So Mark and I had the opportunity to stand around the Pro Baja garage and just really get a feel for these trucks. I mean, when you get up front and get actually to put your hands on a real Baja trophy truck, and one that the side panels are off of, and you can look at the shocks, and you can look at the A-arms, and you can look at the bushings and the ball joints and the motor and the exhaust and the suspension and just everything on it. I mean, all we had was questions. We were just amazed because these vehicles are so beefy, so overbuilt, and so cool.
29 inches of wheel travel, 450 horsepower. The more I learned about the vehicle, the more I wanted to go and get out there in the desert and just stand on the throttle and see what these things would do.
When we were coming across from Moab to Gateway, I was pouring the coal on these side-by-sides, and I think Chuck was having fun keeping up and was knowing that I was pushing the limits a little bit. When we got in the Baja trucks and we were supposed to go around for a nice easy pace lap just to kind of give you a bit of a break in as the passenger, yeah, Chuck didn't do that with me. When you get in one of these Baja trucks and you don't know what it can do, it's pretty interesting heading into a corner at 70 miles an hour that's completely rutted out and gnarly, and where if I was doing this in a side-by-side, I'd be rubber steel rubber about 12 different times.
Them being drivers for all the stuff that they do, they're not used to being the co-pilot, and it's kind of tough when you're with someone that you don't really know. Even though we got to hang out with each other for a couple days, driving back and forth from Moab to Colorado, I think they were still a little bit cautious and super surprised on that we're throwing trucks around that weigh 5,000 pounds that hard into the corners.
After doing the ride along and kind of breaking my teeth on what to expect with this truck and knowing what it could do, we pulled in and Chuck said it was time for me to drive. And they had told me that everybody who did the full session so far this season has rolled a truck. That made me a little nervous, but I was excited at the same time because you're driving something that you can only drive here at Gateway Canyons Resort. And I don't just mean in Canada, the US, North America, I mean in the world. There's no other place I know of you can drive a Pro Baja truck.
All right, have fun.
when you sit down in that driver's seat, you're strapped in, wearing your race suit, got your neck brace on, and you're buckled in, you're going, are they really gonna let me rail a $250,000 Baja truck? I mean, this can't be right. Right off the get-go, you can hear this motor just growling in the background. I mean, you've got headphones in and you're listening to the guy talking to you, but I mean, it just makes an awesome bark. You get into some of the corners after you get your confidence up, you know, power sliding it and holding it nice and steady, and it feels really good. Even when you see a big, huge bump in the middle of the road and you know, okay, well, you know, on a side-by-side that'd lift me up on 2 wheels, you just keep the gas on and man, these things just chew right through it. Going over the jumps, it's, you know, wide open up to the jump, give it a little tap of throttle before and then let off, and all 30 inches of travel soaks up everything. I mean, I was ready to take some impacts, and at not one time did this thing bottom out. I mean, there's huge travel.
DirtTrax is sponsored by Brimstone, where the journey is your reward.
Slide on in.
My first drive along in the trophy truck, it was a little bit intimidating. I mean, you're clamped in there with 5 points, and I've experienced 5 points before, but I'm usually driving when I have them on, and here I am strapped in thinking, I just want to get through this. Chuck Dempsey, let me tell you, this guy knows how to drive in the desert. He goes out with my hot laps, and we are going so fast and so sideways, and it's almost like the truck is a boat in water. It almost feels like it's floating through the bumps. When he turned the left chair over to me, I had been listening carefully to what he was saying, and he said, I'll coach you and tell you what to do. And I got to stand on that throttle for the first time. Believe me, when you jump on 450 horsepower in an off-road vehicle with tires that big, stuff starts to happen really, really fast. The suspension is, in my opinion, like nothing I have ever experienced in all of the off-road vehicles I have driven, and I've driven them my whole life. I've never experienced anything with suspension like those trucks. Nothing on earth has impressed me in terms of ride quality, speed, and handling off-road like this Driven Experience Pro Baja deal in the trophy trucks. If you want to do the maximum off-road experience, then you will not be able to say you've done it until you get in one of those vehicles.
On our final day, Mark and I had planned to go back across the desert alone because Chuck was staying at Gateway Canyons. You know, it was sad to depart and say see you later to Chuck, but we've got some cool plans for the future with him and some interesting things that we want to do. And it was kind of cool because Mark and I were going to be able to head across the desert and sort of do this trip backwards ourselves, be able to have a vehicle each, and you know, just do a father-son thing that was kind of neat. Right off the get-go, I think Mark and I were a little amped up from driving the Baja trucks because the first section of trail we got on, we were running fast.
It's just a lot of fun to wick up the throttle on a 1000cc side-by-side and throw it into some corners and get it sideways and use the brake to get the back end to tail out and just have fun driving. And the pace definitely picked up as we headed back towards Moab.
I didn't really have a 100% solid opinion of what I thought of the Wildcat Trail. I knew that it was a cool vehicle, I knew it had lots of potential, but I hadn't had the seat time to really give it a good shakedown. This time, I had the entire day. I mean, I had 50 miles to really get a good feel for what the Wildcat Trail could do, and at no point was I disappointed. In fact, I was overwhelmed with just how good this vehicle handled.
We hadn't had a chance yet to really ring out our own Wildcat Trail. So this, for me, was the first ride in this thing. And wow, everything the guys had told me about it was true. It just really overachieved. I was surprised for a 50-inch wide vehicle. Not only the handling was really good, but the power was like over the top.
I was just blown away all around. I mean, if you got to buy a 50-inch wide side-by-side, this is the side-by-side to buy. Because it was just Mark and I on the last day, I knew that when we got closer to Moab, we'd have to ride the slick rock. That's what Moab's known for. When Mark headed out initially from Moab, he looked at it and thought it just looks crazy, and I wanted to take him on a little bit of an adventure through there. As I mentioned earlier, I don't get a ton of time to ride with my dad. I don't get a ton of time to spend with Luke or Mark, because we're always at different places doing different things. So it was really neat to be able to spend this time just with my dad, riding side by sides out in what I'd consider to be some of the most diverse and beautiful terrain in all of North America.
Because all of my interaction with my boys has really centered around motorized recreation, that's the thing that we did. That was what it was to be a Lester guy. It was cool to get back to that and do that with AJ and to enjoy it and communicate and have that friendship.
Taking the opportunities to ride with my family, ride with my dad, and just do something different, I really realize how important that is. Having two daughters of my own, I know that these are going to be the things later in life that are going to mean a lot to me, and I know that a trip like this meant a lot to my dad.
DirtTrax is sponsored by Super ATV, the industry leader in aftermarket parts and accessories for the off-road market.
5 years ago, there were over 100 China-based manufacturers of ATVs. Today, there are but 3 credible OEMs building off-road vehicles. On this DirtTrax feature, we're going to talk about the most successful ATV and side-by-side OEM from the Far East. CFMOTO is celebrating 25 years of building motorcycles, ATVs, and side-by-side vehicles. The company opened its doors in 1989, and by the mid-90s was fully engaged in building both on-road and off-road power sport vehicles. CFMOTO has exceptional expertise in building liquid-cooled engines for power sport applications. They actually manufacture over 300,000 liquid-cooled mills annually and approximately 200,000 complete off- and on-road vehicles. Privately owned by the founding Lai family, the CFMOTO story is tangibly different from the plethora of Chinese manufacturers we've seen come and go. Most notable is the company's ability to build 500cc and larger liquid-cooled engines. This company is also much less engaged in copycat manufacturing. Proof? CFMOTO has set its sights on innovation and invests up to 10% of the company's annual revenue in research and development. Investing in R&D has also led to an investment in quality manufacturing processes. Continuous improvement and continual validation of production quality has produced, in our opinion, some exceptionally reliable and obviously higher quality ATVs and side-by-sides than we or you may be accustomed to when the country of origin is China. On our recent trip to their manufacturing facility, CFMOTO impressed us with their efforts to establish the brand as a durable, high-quality product. Their successes with racing and endurance challenges are also undeniably impressive. More importantly, these successes came using production-based, lightly modified vehicles. The amazing success the Canadian CFMOTO racing team carted at this spring's Le Tuque, Quebec endurance race underscores how far the Chinese maker has come. Using 800cc Z-Force 4x4 production side-by-sides, CFMOTO dominated the podium. In fact, they swept the podium. Numerous brand-building and quality-enhancing endurance rides, such as the 12,000-kilometer ride in 60 days from Mongolia to Sweden aboard their 800cc Terralander, has produced similar results. CFMOTO ATVs and side-by-side vehicles can take real-world punishment. In case this sounds overly patronizing, here's the beef on the racing and endurance program the company uses to showcase their products. CFMOTO offers a no extra cost 5-year warranty on all their side-by-side and ATV vehicles. Here's more proof of CFMOTO's different slant on achieving credibility and sales success with their Chinese-built products. The company uses vended parts from North American aftermarket suppliers. We were amped to find Elka shocks on a number of CFMOTO models. This brand is known for outstanding quality and exceptionally high performance at premium pricing levels. CVTech clutches adorn almost all performance CFMOTO vehicles. So what's going on here? Here's what we think. CFMOTO is seriously pursuing the ATV and side-by-side market with the goal of achieving global credibility and sales success in the power sports business. With significant market share in the European and Russian marketplace, CFMOTO has set its sights on North America and appears to be attacking the market methodically, something many Chinese OEMs did not do the past decade and as a result are no longer around. CFMOTO has capable master distributors in over 60 countries with approximately 1,500 dealers selling close to 36,000 powersport vehicles. We're not going to lie, we think the weakness of the CFMOTO brand lies in some of its models' copycat bodywork and styling. You no doubt recognize that the Z-Force 800 closely mirrors the style of the Polaris RZR. Interestingly, CFMOTO's side-by-sides and ATVs are mechanically unique. The Z-Force uses a V-twin mill, has a longer wheelbase and narrower stance, as well as different front and rear suspension systems than any Polaris RZR we've seen. When it's all said and done, despite copycat looks on some models, we think CFMOTO's ATVs and side-by-sides are solid handling, smooth riding, respectable performing off-road vehicles that come with an incomparable 5-year warranty. Honestly, we think CFMOTO is going to be around for a long time.
Closed captioning of DirtTrax is sponsored by Triton Trailers. Know it, own it, haul it.
When you're leading the pack like Polaris has been for so many years, with new model introductions and crazy vehicles like the XP1K, base model, budget buggies can sometimes get overlooked. The RZR 800 is hands down the best-selling sports side-by-side of all time. It's been the king of the 50-inch wide castle since 2008 and only recently has received any competition, possibly the reason why it's stayed so familiar. Familiar is good, so is mass production that leads to lower retail cost. But with the introduction of the Wildcat Trail, it hasn't just thrown a wrench into that equation, it's been lobbing hand grenades. What do I mean? Well, the RZR 800 is virtually untouched from its original 2008 design. Sure, it's had a few tweaks, but it's lacked updates that you find on the RZR 570, like the 570 specific rolled IRS and the ProStar inline engine. Sales have been great, performance has been good, but in this industry, Polaris is consistently innovating and bringing us vehicles like the XP1K and Ranger XP 900. So where's the update love for the base 800 RZR? I'm not telling you anything that Polaris doesn't already know. I'm just pointing out the fact that this vehicle represents the heart of what RZR is and has been relatively untouched in the update department. We anticipate a full overhaul of the base RZR 800 in the very near future, and that may include the elimination of the 800 motor for a new ProStar mill, possibly a D-Tune 900 strapped into a new chassis with an updated suspension system, totally new exterior styling, and a redesigned cockpit. But for now, the humble RZR has only the Wildcat to stack up against. And after last week's Wildcat test ride, well, let's just say the RZR is fighting an uphill battle. I'm actually really excited to get behind the wheel of this base model today, because the truth is we're always out testing the biggest and baddest horsepower monsters there are. And I actually haven't been behind the wheel of a base RZR for quite some time. And the first thing that becomes incredibly apparent is that while it does need updates, the base RZR is where it's at in sales because of where it's at in performance. Yes, it's underpowered compared to the Wildcat, but it's still very stout and incredibly flickable in the corners, with an abundance of available power and a driveline that transfers that power to the ground with finesse. The steering is light, the controls are very usable and comfortable, and you feel right at home. I mean, truthfully, in a RZR, you just fit. On the downside, the seating position is not as comfy or sporty as the competition, nor do I like the frame supports that tend to dig into your left wing when cornering hard. The front suspension, however, is plush and tracks really well through its entire travel, with little concern of under or oversteer. The rear suspension, Well, it gets the job done, but you'll be shocked at how much better the RZR 570's rear end works over this design. Is it disappointing? No, but when you've ridden the cheaper 570, you really wish the pricier 800 had the same setup. The amenities inside of the RZR get the job done, but they do feel minimal. And in particular, the nets make it feel outdated and old school, and could be updated with a set of mid-doors like the XP1K. The tilt steering is still in the perfect spot, and although I'm not a huge fan of solid plastic steering wheels, this one does give precise feedback and allows total command of the trail, holding power slides with ease, requiring moderate input through the twisties, and really offering a comfortable 3 and 9 o'clock hand position. However, a rubberized wheel would be nice, and possibly a smaller ratio, so there was less input required. While I am being a little tough on the RZR 800, it's only because Polaris has been blazing trails of innovation with pretty much every other product they make. At the end of the ride day, I truly have no deal-breaking complaints about this RZR, and if I hadn't had the chance to ride the Wildcat Trail, I wouldn't know what I'm missing. But I did test the Wildcat Trail, and I do know what I'm missing. And it's our job to inform you of just that. Do I think Polaris is asleep at the wheel? Not for a second. And I anticipate the next gen RZR 50-inch will blow us away. But the competition isn't leaving any meat on the bone, and the RZR 800 base needs an overhaul to stay in the fight. If you don't agree with me, join our social media and let us know what you think. This is the vehicle that changed the way we'll look at a side-by-side forever, and blaze the path for vehicles like the RZR S, the XP900, and the King of the Hill XP1K.
DirtTrax Television has been sponsored by Polaris, the ultimate in off-road vehicles. Can-Am, the ride says it all. MBRP Performance Exhaust, making power with MBRP. Arctic Cat, share our passion. And by Honda. Check out the growing family of Honda ATVs and side-by-sides.
If you enjoyed this video, post a comment and let us know what you think. Then, click this link to subscribe and that link for more great videos from DirtTrax TV.